beat each other next morning, and it's pretty cool day, they say. I'm gonna be reading Frank Matthew's fourth chapter, but before we do that, we got in the prayer request. Jake, Donna called that morning, told me she would be here, she was too sick, and remember her in prayer too, so we didn't remember her. Anybody that got one?
Jay Warren six. She called me yesterday, so he run fever all day, he just stayed in bed, just.
Anybody that got one? Everybody have one over here? Yeah. Yeah. We got a lot of people we need to pray for. Chuck, remember, a lot of people sick, that weather is back and forth, and we have to remember it too. Frank Matthew, the fourth chapter, begin with the shed blood. And say unto him, if thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down, for it is written, he shall give his angels charge concerning them, and in the hand that shall bear them up, but at any time that their foot against the stone. Jesus said unto him, it is written again, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Again the devil take him up to a certain high mountain, and show him all the kingdoms of the world, and the glory of them. And say unto him, all these things will I give them, if they will fall down and worship me. Then said Jesus unto him, get in him, Satan, for it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and he only shall thou serve. You know, a lot of people tempt the Lord anyway, so we need to serve the Lord, quit tempting the Lord about anything. I'm gonna let Mike admit with a word of prayer.
Father, Lord, it's again, God, I come to bow here, thank you, God, for another day that you permit us, God, to live on this side, God, to come into your house, worship you in spirit and in truth. Lord, I pray, God, today that you bless this Sunday school. Lord, I pray that you give the teachers the word to say this morning, God, that would go into that of our heart, and feed that of our soul. Lord, we thank you, Lord, for everything that you've done for us. Lord, all these requests, God, that's been mentioned here, I'm here. Lord, realize that people are sick or never come really return. Lord, you know whatever stands in need of it. God, I pray today that it be your will, that you lay that your healing hand. God, I know you're still in the healing business, and God, I know that you're able to heal them, and they just ask you, Lord, that they be healed. Lord, you said if we'd ask anything in your name, doubt nothing, God, they would be what you would do. Lord, I thank you for that. Lord, bless these that lost their blood. Go with us, lead us, and guide us, and direct us in everything. We'll be here to give you the praise and the glory for it all. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen.
guess I'll be, count myself still among the sick, although I feel a lot better than I did a week ago. So hopefully everybody's on the mend, and I've just got a lot that obviously this time of year everybody seems like they're sick anyway. And here lately there's been a bug going around, so pray for all those who have it, or something worse in many cases. So I want to look today at just one chapter. We look at John, and it's going to be chapter 16. Now, those that are very familiar with the Gospels will know that this is in the middle of Jesus talking and giving some very specific, although in their case, to some of them, somewhat cryptic, because they didn't understand what all of it meant at the time, and that was often true of what Jesus told people, is that it later became self-evident what he meant, and it became clear that on many levels it was something important for them to know and to follow. Sometimes people had questions at the time, as like, what does that parable mean, or what does he mean by this? And then it became, and Jesus, even as he spoke these things, knew that they weren't all going to be equally clear to everybody at that moment, but that his word would become manifest, that it would, over time, people, if they really wanted to know what he was saying, if they tuned in and tried, they would have understanding. And so John chapter 16 is sort of like that. It's got some things in it that are very clear, and other things probably even the disciples themselves who he was talking to may not have understood at the time exactly what he meant. But I want to go through this whole chapter if we can get through it today. It's only 33 verses, but there's a lot in them. I'm going to start with John 16, verse 1. These things have I spoken unto you, that ye should not be offended. Offending basically means to get confused or to slip up. That's kind of what it basically means. That they shall put you out of the synagogues. Yea, the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think he doeth God service. Now, interesting that Jesus was saying this, because he would be the first of them to die an earthly death of all the people that were right there at the time, gathered with the disciples. They didn't realize that his time was, the end of his earthly life was so close at hand. They didn't realize that literally almost hours away from him being arrested and then crucified. But it says, when he says, whosoever killeth you will think he doeth God service. If you look down through history in the 2,000 years since this happened, most of the persecution of Christians and most of those who've been martyred have been martyred for, quote, religious reasons. Most of the groups, and whether it was other religious sects, if you will, or the Muslims or whoever, sometimes even Christian sect, one kind or another would, that's who would end up persecuting the Christian, and which would seem kind of counterintuitive to us, and it probably sounded kind of weird to the disciples, thinking, well, the people in the church or the followers, they're going to be on our side. We saw that in many cases, right away almost, that the disciples began to be persecuted themselves, and quite often by the religious establishment, if you will, and of Judaism. So Jesus knew this was going to come. He knew they were going to get kicked out of his Jewish synagogues. They knew that they were going to have trouble, just like he had trouble with the authorities. He knew that anybody that followed him was going to have trouble. Now, people are going to have trouble anyway. It's just going to take different forms, but the trouble that they would have at least would be for the right reason, if they were doing it for the right reason to start with. If what they were doing was following Christ and following his teachings and spreading his word, not everybody was going to like that. And the Jewish leaders in particular, the Roman emperors, the governors, there were a lot of enemies of the Christian faith at that point, which was literally just getting started. In verse 3 it says, and these things will they do unto you, because they have not known the Father nor me. Now they might have acted like they knew they were following God or Allah or Jehovah, you know, or any of the various names that you would have used in Judaism at the time. But Christianity itself, of course, literally did not even by name even yet exist. And so there's a lot of these people that were going to be doing these things, but Jesus said, look, they don't know the Father, they don't know me. And in verse 4 it says, but these things have I told you, that when the time shall come, ye may remember that I told you of them. And these things I said not unto you at the beginning, because I was with you. But now I go my way to him that sent me, and none of you asketh me, whither goest thou? This is kind of interesting, because normally if somebody says, I'm going away, I'll see you later, whatever else, the first thought in your mind is, well, where are you going? You know, you may not have reason to suspect that it's anything really that interesting or any place exotic or whatever, but, you know, it has to go through your head. If they don't say where they're going, you kind of naturally wonder, well, where are you going? And yet the disciples didn't ask Jesus where he was going, which he thought was a little bit odd to him, I guess, from the way he put it here. And I can't, obviously I'm not reading his mind here, but I'm just saying, none of you asketh, whither goest thou? But because I have said these things unto you, sorrow hath filled your heart. Now he knew, you know, he didn't have to ask them if they were sorry, you know, about how things were kind of going, or that what he had said, I'm going to be leaving you, and you're going to continue these things, and people are going to hate you and throw you out of the synagogue, and some of you are going to get killed, you know, because you're following me. And yet what it amounted to was he knew they were focused on their own path, not his. Because naturally, when somebody tells you all these bad things are going to happen to you and I'll see you later, your first thought is probably not, well, where are you going? It's like, what do you mean something bad is going to happen to me? You know, because it's always about us, right? I mean, that's just natural human nature. Is like the first thing, how does this affect me? Well, the disciples, even though they've been walking right there with Jesus, they still human, flesh and blood, and they still had human nature like we do. And I'm sure they were thinking, and Jesus knew this, they were thinking, well, I'm not too keen on this whole thing you're telling me here. You know, what's going to happen to me? So in reality, he knew that they were not focused on him. And they should have been, as we all should be. However, the first excuse we have for thinking about us, it's all about us, right? I mean, it's like, how's this affecting me? You know, what's going to happen here? What's going on with this? But really, you don't care about as much as how it's affecting somebody else. And we really don't, our nature is not to be first concerned, but how does God view this? It's generally your carnal nature is going to be, how do I view this? And so Jesus understood that, and he was trying to just get their hearts and minds tuned to what they needed to be doing. He said, verse 7, nevertheless, I tell you the truth. It's not because he normally lied to them or anything. It's just like he wanted to make really sure that, hey, understand that this is absolutely true. It is expedient for you that I go away. For if I go not away, the Comforter will not come unto you. But if I depart, I will send him unto you. Now, this is a key kind of a revelation that Christ made, saying, look, it's better for you if I leave. Now, you've been following me around, doing everything I said, watching me do miracles, learning from my teachings. You've been my right-hand men, if you will. But it's better for you if I leave. And that wouldn't really normally make sense to us if we were following somebody around and say, well, I'm about to go away, and, good luck. Okay, well, that doesn't normally sound right. But yet, Jesus knew Jesus could only be, in the flesh, he could only be one place at one time, just like any of us. However, as the Holy Spirit, when it came down, and when the Comforter was sent, the Comforter could be everywhere at once, and is, among his followers. And so, that's why I said it is better for you if I go away, and then, because if I don't go away, the Comforter will not come. So, that may be kind of counterintuitive to us. It's like, well, God and the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, they could all be all things at all times at all places. And they could, in theory, because all-powerful Godhead. However, the plan was for the Comforter to come after Jesus went back to heaven. Now, it doesn't mean the Spirit of God wasn't all over everything to start with. It was, but very specifically meaning the Comforter in the way that's put in the King James Version is a little bit different. It really is the Comforter that comes to continue to manifest Christ on earth through people and to people after Jesus went back to heaven, ascended back to the Father. So I think we have to kind of get our head around why he distinguished it a little bit here. In verse 8 where it says, "And when he is come, he will reprove the world of sin and of righteousness and of judgment." Now, reprove kind of means going to convince the world and make it clear to people that there's sin and judgment and all these things. That's what's going to live in your heart, is this Comforter who is going to be the one who convicts. We know that the Holy Spirit is what convicts people of their sin. So it's very clear he's laying out this path that, okay, this is going to happen, and therefore it's better for me to fulfill my role here on earth and go back to the Father and be replaced by the Comforter here among you. Okay? It said, verse 9, "Of sin, because they believe not on me. Of righteousness, because I go to my Father, and ye see me no more. Of judgment, because the prince of this world is judged. I have yet many things to say unto you, but ye cannot bear them now." Jesus knew what they could handle at any given time, just like God knows what we can handle. And so he didn't just dump all of it on them all at once and either get them confused or frustrated or bewildered, whatever word you want to use. He doled it out in doses, if you will, so that they could digest it as it came to them. And even then, because, again, they're flesh and blood like us, they didn't understand in perfect clarity at the time everything he was saying. And we know that there's many examples of that through the Gospels where somebody like Peter or whoever would say, "Excuse me, but I don't get it. I'm confused here. What do you mean by this?" Okay, and so, but yet Jesus was laying out this path, if you will, of how things are going to happen. And it says in verse 13, "Howbeit when he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide you into all truth. For he shall not speak of himself, but whatsoever he shall hear, that shall he speak. And he will show you things to come. He shall glorify me, for he shall receive of mine, and shall show it unto you. All things that the Father hath are mine. Therefore said I, that he shall take of mine, and shall show it unto you." Again, all these things are connected: the Spirit, the Son, the Father. Okay? Verse 16, "A little while, and ye shall not see me. And again a little while, and ye shall see me, because I go to the Father." Now, right here it starts to get confusing to the disciples, because it says, "Then said some of his disciples among themselves, What is this that he saith unto us?" Okay, it's like, so it suggests that Jesus did not say all this in one oration that was without break or without pause in there, because it said in here that the disciples like, what's he saying to us here? Now, I'm sure that thing about a little while obviously was one of the things that they didn't totally understand. What is a little while? Well, a little while to us is like a little, after church, we're going to go have lunch, or we'll go up to Lake Lanier in a little while, or we're going to do whatever in a little while. What is a little while to God? We don't know what time is to God. It's just like, I will return soon. Well, 2,000 years so far, most of us would not say, well, that's soon, but we're looking at it with human thoughts and human eyes and a human perspective on the world. We don't look at it like from the Creator's perspective of what a little while is. So they probably didn't know. I said, what's this mean? Like, in an hour, in like 2 weeks? They were a little bit confused. Said, a little while and ye shall not see me. This is where Jesus started talking again. A little while and ye shall not see me, and again a little while and ye shall see me. And because I go to the Father, then said they said therefore, what is this that he saith, a little while? We cannot tell what he saith. Now Jesus knew that they were desirous to ask him, and said unto them, he already knew what they were thinking. I mean, that's, God just knows, and Jesus is part of God. Do ye inquire among yourselves of that? I said, a little while, and ye shall not see me, and again a little while, and ye shall see me. Again, it sounded kind of like a contradiction to them. It's like, we're saying, I'm not going to see you, but then we are going to see you. It's like, and we see you now. So they're probably like, they just didn't know what was going on. Verse 20, verily, verily, I say unto you, that ye shall weep and lament, but the world shall rejoice. And ye shall be sorrowful, but your sorrow shall be turned into joy. Okay, now this relates right back to, I'm going away, but you'll see me again. Okay, that relates to the world will rejoice, and you'll be sorry, and you'll have sorrow, but your sorrow shall be turned into joy, meaning when they see him again. Okay, but they didn't understand what was going to happen to him. They had no way. He may have said, I got to go away and come back and all this, and they're like, people don't do that. People go away and then they're gone. Okay, especially if they die, they're gone. We're not going to see them again. So they're probably just trying to get their heads around what he's exactly saying here. Verse 21, a woman when she is in travail hath sorrow, in other words, childbirth, because her hour is come, but as soon as she is delivered of the child, she remembereth no more the anguish for joy that a man is born into the world. So sorrow can lead right up to a moment of great joy. And anguish and pain and discomfort and all these things we want to call it. As soon as the baby is born, obviously I've never had one, but I think I can speak for the world as I understand it, is that women very quickly focus on the baby and not on themselves. But until the baby is born, there is no baby there to focus on. You're in pain, and great pain. And sometimes it goes on for a long time. So Jesus is comparing the disciples really to the woman in travail, and saying, look, you're going to be focused on this, but there will be joy. Joy cometh in the morning, as it says, and you will be joyful in the end, because it will all be clear to you, and you will know that things have worked out as they should have. Okay, so verse 22, and ye now therefore have sorrow, but I will see you again, and your heart shall rejoice, and your joy no man taketh from you. So regardless of any of these things that happen, it's going to work out. And you just have to have faith that what I'm telling you is true. In verse 23, and in that day ye shall ask me nothing. Verily, verily, I say unto you, whatsoever ye shall ask the Father in my name, he will give it to you. Hitherto have ye asked nothing in my name. Ask, and ye shall receive, that your joy may be full. These things have I spoken unto you in Proverbs, but the time cometh when I shall no more speak unto you in Proverbs, but I shall show you plainly of the Father. In other words, he says, I've been talking in parables, I've been using proverbial language and things, but it's going to be very clear to you now. There won't be any room for confusion or wondering exactly what this parable means or whatever, because things are going to play out that you're going to see with your own eyes, and you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. At that day ye shall ask in my name, and I shall not unto you, and I say not unto you that I will pray the Father for you, for the Father himself loveth you, because ye have loved me, and have believed that I came out from God. Now sometimes we tend to think, and I understand why we do, that God loves everybody regardless. And He does. He created us. He wants us all to be following, His instructions, His behaviors, all the things that He wants us to do. He loves everybody. He wouldn't have sent Jesus if He didn't love everybody and give everybody a chance to be saved. Now, I had somebody on Facebook yesterday, I saw as an interesting, said, if it's something everybody can have, I don't want it. And I got to reading that and I thought, well, I can see where they're going with that. It's like, if it's easy to have, I want something I got to work for, something that not everybody can have. But I thought, well, there's an exception to that. And the exception is salvation. Everybody can have it. And if you don't want it, then you might not be thinking on the right level here. Okay? Or I can understand why you're talking about material things. Yeah. If everybody could have a Cadillac, I wouldn't want one. Well, I'd want something I really had to work for, something that, only the best people can have. I get that. That's how people go out and work and achieve things in this life. However, has nothing to do with salvation, because you can't work for that anyway. You just have to accept it. First you have to believe, otherwise you have to be convicted by the Spirit. As it said before, you have to be convicted by the Holy Ghost to even want it, to know that you need it. And then after that, well then, yeah, anybody can have it. Okay? So, and we're here where it says, the Father loves you because you love me. Well, I don't think that means in a broad sense that if you didn't love me, that He would hate you, but He will not accept you into His kingdom. So maybe there's a contradiction or a little confusion on our part about what love itself means. But anyway, bottom line is that He basically says, for the Father Himself loveth you because ye have loved me and have believed that I came out from God. I came forth from the Father and have come into the world. Again, I leave the world and go to the Father. Now that had to be, again, all this stuff is coming at them and they're like, what? Go back to, we know you're the Son of God. We've said that. Even Peter said, thou art the Christ. Okay? So, the Son of living God. So, they understood that He had come from God, that He'd born of a virgin and all these things, but to go away and then come back, and I think maybe He was having to get their heads around it before they could go out and teach what we, generations to follow, would need to know about the gospel. And I go unto the Father, and go to the Father. His disciples said unto Him, Lo, now speaketh thou plainly, and speaketh no proverb. Now are we sure that thou knowest all things, and needest not that any man should ask you, but this we believe, that thou camest forth from God. Jesus answered them, Do you now believe? He already knew the answer to his question, because He knows everything. Okay? Behold, the hour cometh, yea, is now come, that ye shall be scattered, every man to his own, and shall leave me alone. And yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. And what happened when He was arrested? They all scattered like a bunch of quail, and, quote, left Him alone. But He wasn't alone. Just like we're never really alone. We shouldn't feel alone, because God is there with us. And through the persecution, in His case, the arrest, the execution, all these things that happened, God was right there with Him. It wasn't like He had just abandoned Him just like the disciples did. In verse 33, These things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Now, that to them right then, if you're talking about, I'm going to go away and you're going to have problems and all this stuff, and just like they knew that He was hated by the authorities, and that there were certain people that wanted to do away with Him, didn't believe, including in the Jewish church, of course. The synagogue was the main place. The Pharisees and the Sadducees were the main ones, even more, I think, than the Romans, who wanted to do away with the God. He was a threat to their authority and to what their power, if you will. And so He knew, Jesus said, you'll have tribulation. He said, I'm going to have tribulation. You know, however, I'm not alone in my tribulation because God is there with me. The Father is with me. He will be with me. He is with me now. You'll be the same way. You'll have the Comforter. Once I go away, you'll have the Comforter with you. And so all of that really was setting the stage, of course, for him to be arrested, tortured, executed, and then, of course, he was resurrected. But Jesus just trying to help them understand all these things are happening for a reason, and they're all to the good. You know, these are bad things on the surface that are going to happen. The tribulations are bad things on the surface for you. However, joy cometh in the morning, and so the joy that will come from it in the end is worth way more than the tribulation you'll face along the way, just like it is for me as well. So for him to set that example, to explain what was going to happen, to put it in a way that they could understand it clearly, and for them to then go forth and be able with great conviction to continue to preach that message, and found the churches, and those messages and those meanings still be relevant to us today, 2,000 years later, you can understand why Jesus had to very clearly set in place what's going to happen and why it's going to happen. And so for us now to look on it in faith and say, yeah, this is just as relevant to me today as it was to them back then, gathered around listening to Jesus in the flesh, now we have the Holy Spirit that helps us go day to day through the bad things that happen, understanding and giving us faith that joy really will come in the morning, and then at the end it will all be worth it. So I appreciate y'all's attention this morning. I do consider that to be really one of the, I mean, every part of the Bible is a key part of the Bible. I don't mean to put it that way, but I would say as far as relevance of understanding Jesus' mission on earth and why he was here and why he had to go away and how we have to get our heads around that, I do think that's one of the kind of more key chapters, if you will, even in the Gospels. And certainly I think it gives us all faith that when bad things happen, there is a reason for it. There's always a reason for it, and yet you have to be strong. You have to say, you know, I'm going to push through this. I got to climb this mountain. You know, there's a better day ahead. So anyway, hope y'all got something out of that.
One thing, that's pretty good. I hope we get you on up there by next Friday. We got a birthday and a birthday. Oh, okay. We got Barbara and Betty back there, and I think that's birthday
Y'all
too.
come on, you got to say happy birthday to y'all.
Oh, yeah.
We ain't got to work, so we're trying to find out the bench, we sort of weigh the balance and found off. All right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, God bless you. Happy birthday to you.
I'm glad Betty did that with a play.
Lord, we thank you for another day, Lord. We thank you for being in your house one more time, Lord. What we were able to learn, Lord, we pray God that we can use that, Lord, in our lives. Lord, we pray God that you hear each one of these requests that you made for those who are sick, that lost loved ones, and so forth. Lord, we pray God that you just heal and touch as you see fit. Go with us through the service.